But I like to hit your funny bone most of the time, before I try to scare you. After I read the author's note, I'll be reading parts 1, 2, and 3. On next week's show, I'll finish the story. This is Nightmare at the Dirt Track by E.T. Brother and Ben Hill. Author's note. I went to the racetrack the other night to watch fast cars go around the dirt track. Everything should have been fine. I should have been able to turn my brain off and enjoy a night off. Of course, that isn't what happened. My brain obviously didn't get the memo to take the night off, kick back and drink a few. Of course, I now see what the problem was. It was my shirt. I should have known better than to wear one of my riding shirts to the racetrack. That was a clear indication to my mind to give me a new story. I'm certain that had to be the problem. It couldn't have been me seeing balloons in the pit area, or the fact that my mind is always giving me ideas. It was definitely the shirt's fault. Damn it, new riding shirt. I have enough ideas at the moment, more ideas than I could possibly ever write in years. Can you please let me have one night off? Anyway, I was at the track. My new riding shirt gave me an idea. Then it wouldn't shut up about it. Okay, I just made that part up. The shirt didn't say anything, but I'm absolutely certain it was responsible for the problem, though. I'll tell you exactly what happened. Then you will see why it was the shirt's fault. It's my new riding shirt. I just got it the other week, but that has nothing to do with anything. Anyway, the shirt has this on it. The voices in my head tell me what to write. There, positive proof. It was the shirt's fault. Okay, yeah, it didn't prove anything. But I'm still blaming the shirt, because I'm not taking the blame. I was sitting in my chair near the track, looking into the pit area, and I saw balloons. My first thought was that it was someone's birthday. My second thought, and this made me look all around, was that Pennywise was close by. My next thought was about the beautiful clown. She is hot, but she is freaking creepy. Now that I think about it, she's not really all that hot. Not if you see what's really lurking beneath. But we won't get into all that. After my initial reactions, I pushed the thoughts of balloons, Pennywise, and the beautiful clown out of my mind. I was at the racetrack to relax and enjoy race cars going fast. That lasted for all of 30 seconds. Then a voice spoke up in my head. It was closely followed by another, then another. Before long, the voices were talking so damn loud, I couldn't hear the race cars going around the racetrack. It was very nerve-wracking. I was worried someone would hear the voices in my head and call for those people in the white jackets. Soon enough, my fear came true. At least part of it. The guy sitting next to me asked me what I had just said. I told him I hadn't said anything. And he said that I had so. I was talking about balloons or something. I had to think fast. I looked at him and said, "The voices must be in your head." I gave him an odd look. He quickly got up and moved his chair to the other side of the racetrack. He ran to the other side. It was quite comical to see. After that, I got up and went to the porta potty. I told the voices to shut up. That worked great. Actually, that's bullshit. It didn't work at all. The voices began talking even louder. I explained the facts to the voices, told them that I would write the damn story when I got home. They finally agreed to my terms and fell silent for the rest of the races. Now you see why I say it's the shirt's fault. Okay, it didn't prove anything. I was just being a smart ass. I learned my lesson, though. I will never wear my riding shirt to the racetrack again. Not happening. Until I wear it to the racetrack next time. Next week I plan to wear my I Want to Be Like SK shirt. The shirt that says, I make stuff up. I saw a picture of Stephen King wearing that shirt. So that's why I call it that. Anyway, now on with the story. Nightmare at the Dirt Track. Part 1. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. Edgar Allan Poe. I was at the dirt track, minding my own business, waiting for the races to start. I glanced into the pit area. There were a number of balloons next to the weigh scale. They were floating. I thought nothing of it and looked away. A moment later, I saw movement next to the scale, out of the corner of my eye. I looked around. The balloons were gone. I looked all around the area next to the scale. The balloons weren't there. I looked into the air to see if they had floated away, but they weren't there either. After a moment, I shook my head and looked away from the scales, trying to put it out of my mind. The races were about to begin, and I wanted to watch. I felt someone tap my shoulder. I looked around. There was no one there. I looked over my other shoulder. There was no one there either. After a moment, I looked back toward the track. As I turned my head, though, I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head, looked over my shoulder. There was no one there. I looked all around. There was no one at all behind me, or even close by. After a moment, I turned my head and looked back at the track. I was waiting, like everyone else, for the races to begin. A moment after I began looking at the track, I heard an intake of breath. It was right behind me, directly behind me. I spun around in my seat, looked all around. There was no one there. I looked around for a moment, trying to figure out what was going on. There was no one even close to me. After a moment, I shook my head, turned, and began to look at the track. The races were about to begin. I was ready to relax and enjoy some good racing. As I was looking into the pit area, I heard an exhalation of breath and felt the breath on the back of my neck. I spun around on my seat, almost flipped my chair over, and looked all around. There was no one there. I was beginning to get a little freaked out. This was some screwed up shit going on here. I know what I had heard and felt, but there was no one there. After a moment, I turned back and looked into the pit area. There was a dog next to the scale. It was dressed in a clown outfit. I couldn't see its face because it was turned away from me. I shook my head and began to look away from the dog. People dress their dogs up in the silliest things. I'm sure that dog is embarrassed, and its owner should be too, I thought. Just before I could look away from the dog entirely, it turned toward me, and I looked back in shock and wonder. The dog was not only dressed up like a clown, it also had the face paint of a clown. I stared at the dog, thinking that the paint scheme seemed familiar. Then it came to me. The dog's face was painted up like Pennywise from It. I looked at the dog closer and realized it was also dressed up just like Pennywise. I shook my head and chuckled. I'm a big Stephen King fan, but honestly, that was just a bit too much. Someone was taking things just a little too far. I stared at the dog for a moment, then realized it seemed to be looking right at me. I realized something else as well. Its eyes didn't look exactly right. The distance was too far, so I couldn't pinpoint why they didn't look right. But they looked strange. After a moment, I looked away from the dog and looked at the race cars. I saw an odd thing. All the race cars had balloons tied to them. I frowned because I knew they couldn't race like that. I wondered what the hell was up. Things were a bit hinky here. After a moment, I looked away from the race cars and looked at the stands. I jumped and almost fell out of my seat. Everyone in the stands was dressed up as clowns. They all looked just like Pennywise. What the hell is going on, I wondered. I closed my eyes, rubbed them, then opened my eyes again. Everyone looked normal. No one was dressed like a clown. I shook my head, turned back toward the track, and began to take deep breaths. That had shook me up. I glanced back into the pit area. The dog was still there, but it was normal looking. It wasn't dressed like a clown anymore. I must be cracking up. I've been writing too much lately. My imagination is out of whack. That's what this has to be. I need a vacation, I thought. I felt something land on my arm, a bug of sorts. I glanced down and jumped. A yellow jacket was on my arm, but it wasn't normal. It looked just like Pennywise. What the hell, I thought. The yellow jacket turned toward me, looked up, and grinned. Its mouth was full of sharp little fangs. I closed my eyes and rubbed my eyelids. This isn't happening. It can't be happening. My imagination is running wild. Authors train their imagination to misbehave. Mine is really misbehaving right now. I'm cracking up, I thought. I opened my eyes and looked at my arm. The yellow jacket was still there, but it looked normal. I flicked it off, and it flew away. I glanced around, looked back at the pit area, and looked at the race cars. The drivers were in the cars, but they didn't look right. Not at all. They were all dressed as clowns. They all appeared to look just like Pennywise. I closed my eyes, rubbed my eyelids, then opened my eyes. The drivers looked all normal, dressed in their fire suits, just as they should have been. I got up and went to use the restroom. This was beginning to get out of hand. When I got to the bathroom, things got worse, much worse. I walked in and stopped dead in my tracks. The ceiling was covered in balloons. There must have been hundreds of them. I shook my head, trying to clear it, then closed my eyes. "E.T. brother? Want a balloon?" a voice said. My eyes flew open. I looked around. There was no one there. But there was a purple balloon floating beside me. I looked at the ceiling. The rest of the balloons were gone, but the purple one was floating right beside me. I turned to walk away, then heard laughter coming from the bathroom. I looked back. There was no one there. The laughter seemed to be coming from the drain in the floor. It was an evil laugh. That's it. Everybody out of the freaking pool. The party's over. I'm out of here. I must be reading too much Stephen King lately, I thought. I turned and walked away from the bathroom, leaving the laughter behind. I also thought I was leaving the purple balloon behind. But after walking for a moment, I saw it beside me. I looked at the balloon. I was holding the string. I was carrying the balloon with me. I let go of it. I couldn't even remember grabbing it in the first place. I looked around at the people and the racetrack, and as I looked, it all began to fade and become transparent. Then it vanished. Oh shit, what the hell? This ain't good. I'm trapped in one of my own damn stories. This is bad. Some seriously screwed up shit, I thought. I looked